So basically, this next one is going to be brought to you by Mr. Joseph Maxwell. He is the president of Swift Otter. So Mr. Maxwell will be presenting a session titled, Here are the Tools to Becoming a Master Bug Slayer. I am pretty sure that the title itself has already captured your attention because it certainly captured mine the first time I heard it. So maybe in the tech world, we don't need demon slayers of some sort, but we have warriors in the form of master bug slayers instead. So a quick reminder to everybody watching this right now, if you have any questions about slaying bugs or saving the day perhaps in the tech world, feel free to drop any of your questions to the Q&A box right next to this broadcast, or simply say hi to everyone that are coming in the room in the chat box. So I guess without any further ado, here and now, please welcome our speaker, Mr. Joseph Maxwell.
Well, that was a very nice introduction. Thank you, Jesse. I am really excited to be with you all here today to share my journey of working through solving problems and getting to this place that I've solved a lot of problems. And I'm going to share with you the things that I have learned, or at least a couple of them that I can fit into 25, 30 minutes. But I'm going to share with you one of the most impactful, well, I would say the most impactful tool that I have learned. And I want to share that with you to hopefully enable you to solve problems very quickly, very effectively, and of course, very efficiently. So this is my story of solving problems. But first, a little bit of background about who I am. Call me Joe, Joseph, whatever you want to call me. I'm a husband, father of 3 children. This picture was taken. We took it today. There's a steam engine that rolled through Kansas City. I'm from the center of the United States. It was a really cool experience. It was, I just did the conversion. It was 90 Fahrenheit in the area. So it was a little bit warm for Kansas City standards. But I'm also a Magento developer. I've been a Magento developer since 2011. And the thing was, I started solo. I started by myself. I had no senior developer to work with. I had no other junior developers I could pass off other work to. I started solo. It was difficult. There was no one I could go ask for help from. If there was a problem that was difficult to solve, I had to solve it. And as such, it felt like bugs were slaying me more than I was slaying these bugs. And in fact, if I could just say this, it felt like I was like a bug farmer, that the more I wrote code, the more the bugs crept into the code. And I will say that's a concept for another conversation, how to prevent bugs from getting into our code. And even then, I won't say I write perfect code, that there's no bugs in my code. There are bugs in my code still. But the most important thing is what happens when these bugs are in our code or somebody else's code that they wrote that we are now having to troubleshoot. Let's look at it from this perspective. Okay, a website is down. You're the developer, the lead developer on this website. It's down. You don't know why, but here's where it gets personal. This merchant is confident you are not a good developer because you are not able to solve this problem as quickly as necessary. A couple of years ago, best example ever, we was kind of doing some off the side consulting for a particular Magento migration. They were just kind of asking me for help when necessary. This website, they said they were going to take it live this one day. Of course they did. It went down about 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was down through well past lunchtime. And I'm like, these people are going to call me soon. Well, of course they did. And they gave me a brief synopsis of a couple errors that they were running into. Presumably their other developers were trying everything they possibly could. Again, the website was down for 6 hours. They were losing many thousands of dollars of revenue because it was a hard, cold outage. And I used the techniques I'm about to share with you and got the problem solved. I think it was, if I remember correctly, 30 minutes or less. And most of that time was just trying to get in there and get my head around what happened, what changed. Solving the problem was super easy. But here's the point I want to always bring out to you is that you are the hero. You are the hero because you have, you're the one who's in there having to solve this problem. And unfortunately, I think developers overall are underappreciated for the tireless effort that you put into solving these problems. And I definitely want to recognize you to the very best that I possibly can. But you see, when we head into these difficult situations, the website is down. They are beating on your door. Get this problem solved now. I find that and I put we, hopefully, or not hopefully, I'm guessing it applies to more than just me. We get into this fight or flight mode. We are thinking, this is a major problem. I'm under such huge stress. How do I get out of this? And our ability to solve problems is immediately degraded. Or on the other hand, we might have a problem that keeps reappearing. And I'm pulling out the most stressful or annoying problems to deal with. This problem, you think you smashed it, you've gotten it dealt with, and here it comes again. Yes, okay, so what do we do about that? Because you fix it, 2 weeks later, the merchant emails you again and says, hey, this problem is not fixed. Get your act together. This is, and what they're concerned about as well is, I'm putting money on this, right? I'm paying you an hourly rate, likely. Let's get this problem solved quickly. And what does that do? Like, you're under more stress. This is a problem you didn't want to deal with in the first place, and now you're having to deal with it again. But again, I want to remind you, my friends, you are the hero. And so what this ends up being is we try the same thing 10 times, 15 times. We end up playing the same game over and over again, and the problem doesn't get solved. I would like to introduce you to a good friend of mine who has greatly helped me through a lot of challenges that I faced. Without further ado, I will welcome them to the stage. Oh, it's an acronym. It's not a person. I need to get a little cartoon here for TAD. You see, TAD is an idea. TAD is a system, a framework that you take with you as you approach problems. And I would like to take this time, dedicate my conversation here to TAD. What's TAD? What does it stand for? Well, here's what it stands for. 3 components that make up this acronym. Number 1, take an inventory. What's happening? Get the big picture. Number 2, attempt a fix. So once we have some information, we can now go ahead and try something. Number 3, and this is likely the most important ingredient of the whole system right here, is do it again. You do it once, work through this process once, but work through all 3 steps, and then you come back and you see, okay, do I need to do this again or not? Working through this in a cyclical manner will allow you, we'll talk about the benefits in a minute, but I'll share one of those right now. It will allow you to remove yourself from remove the tunnel vision that we face. You know, in military training, in law enforcement training, and I'm sure there's other areas that this is incredibly important. They often talk about this tunnel vision. Tunnel vision is where you get so focused on this one particular threat, probably a threat to my very existence as a human being, or like if in military or law enforcement training, that you ignore, you block out, your eyes, your mind blocks out everything else. And unfortunately, there could be another problem over this direction or behind you. And so tunnel vision can be a lethal problem in those scenarios, as well as with us as developers. Now, we're not talking about lethalities like me dying. We're talking about merchants' websites being down. We're talking about problems not being able to solve in a good amount of time. So this is the overview. We're going to dive into each one of these steps individually. Number one, take an inventory. Number two, attempt to fix. Number three, do it again. Just remember the name Tad. Good, friendly fellow. I've never met a person whose name is Tad that's mean or unkind. Like, they're just wonderful people. So think of a nice, wonderful, caring, kind person, and you'll be well on your way to understanding this. Before we dive into the keys for this TAD framework, or the implementation of this TAD framework, I want to talk about the keys. Number one, and maybe the most important part of these keys, is to enforce a time limit. You're going to go through each one of these phases, set a time limit, whether that's 1 hour, that's fine. Whether that's 2 hours, that's fine. Maybe more than 2 is probably a little more than it needs to be. 30 minutes, doesn't matter. Set yourself a timer, a stopwatch, just glance at the clock, whatever it takes for you to be able to do this. The most important thing is you're going to pull together all the information. You're going to be thinking of this in the case where you need to go ask somebody for help. The first round, you might come and think, this is completely out of my zone. Like, I have not a clue how to solve this problem. But if you take at least even a half an hour, dig into this, and depending on the situation, if the website's totally down, and you might even, a half an hour might even be too much. Even 15 minutes can help. Pull together as much information as you possibly can. You will be much more successful, because you're going to go talk to your senior developer, someone else on the team, and you're going to say, hey, here's what I've tried. Here's what I've seen. And you're going to save them that time, and they won't have to start investigating. They're going to go immediately, hopefully straight to the problem. And here's another point. Expect to work through at least 2 rounds for permanent solution. In my experience, working through one cycle of the TAD framework will likely mostly solve the problem, but working through it twice will almost guaranteed permanently solve the problem. And again, you might have to work through more rounds than that. Yeah, you definitely might. But at work, can approach every problem as if you were going to you're going to have to take 2 rounds of this TAD framework. That way, you're not going into this expecting, okay, I have to solve this right now. Okay, well, I'm bumping up against my 2 hours limit, so I have to get this solved in the first round of TAD. No, don't worry about that. Plan on coming back at a later time, probably in like 3 to 4 hours or something, maybe less, and you're going to work through this again. So no, there's no pressure. There's no pressure. So let's look at each one of these individually here. Number one, take an inventory. I pulled together a little bit of code, very hypothetical code here, to help illustrate what is the input and what is the output for this step. So take an inventory. We're usually getting some pretty darn scarce details from the merchant. I mean, we've got to face it. They're working hard. They got lots of stuff. And now, especially if their website's down, they've got customers calling them. It's a big deal. It's a problem. So they're not going to be able to throw much information over to you. And likely the information they do throw over at you is probably going to be not very technical. It hopefully has a replication scenario. And I've worked with a couple of merchants who are super good with this. Like, they give you great information from the very beginning, but most don't. So we have to plan on pretty scarce details. We're going to investigate, but the result of our investigation is this hypothesis. Here is what we think is going wrong. And with a hypothesis, we can then proceed on to attempting a fix. But what do we specifically do in this time period here? So we have a half an hour to maybe 2 hours. We can allot for ourselves to take an inventory. Let's look at what we're supposed to do. Review and beef up lousy issue descriptions. You know, well, I have a quick example to share, so I'll hold off on just a second because I think it fits better into research. But getting a issue description, adding some technical details. Here's where I think it could be. Like, if you're really familiar with the code, drop a reference to the particular method that you think it's occurring at. Try to replicate the issue yourself. This is point number 2. You want to make sure that you can replicate the problem. And now here is a location that many developers go astray. I have seen this myself, and I have heard it from many merchants, and they express great frustration because the developer cannot replicate the problem. So they say, thus there is no problem. It's the age-old concept. If a tree falls in the forest and nobody heard it, did the tree actually fall? I'm not going to get into that debate, but instead of approaching problems with, I cannot replicate it, thus it is not a problem, we can express ourselves as excellent and great developers by saying, I cannot replicate this problem, but I will ensure we get this problem fixed. Here's what I'm going to try. It's harder than if I could replicate the problem, but these are the steps I'm taking to figure out what's going on. How do you want me to proceed? That is educated and helpful information that you can give to the merchant, as opposed to, this is not a problem because I cannot replicate this. Number 3, we want to research what is happening in the code. So through this replication, we want to step line by line through the code. And you might be saying, Joseph, step line by line through the code. What does that mean? In fact, we recently did a survey of developers all across the world, and there was 400 developers. I'm looking forward to blowing the cap off of that number here when we do our next developer survey. And I found out that 30% of developers in North America do not use Xdebug. I think it's up to 70% of developers in India don't use Xdebugs. These are huge numbers. That number should be 0. Like no percent of developers that don't use Xdebug. What's Xdebug? It is basically a module or a tool that plugs into PHP on your local development environment that allows you to stop the PHP execution of PHP code and go line by line through it. You not only can say, okay, I want to go to this line. I want to go inside this function. You can also see what variables are here, and you can review what's called the stack trace. Every single method that gets us up to this location where we're currently at. It's mind-blowing. I wrote a course, a free course, swiftauto.com, I think /mastering-xdebug. I should have put a link here in the slides. swiftauto.com/mastering-xdebug. And there's well over 1,000 people that have joined this course. It's free, so no payment required. But the comments that I've gotten, it's revolutionized people's careers as developers. Phenomenal. I told you I was going to tell you about incredible tools. That's one of them. So research what's happening in the code. Just today, literally just today, I fought a crazy issue. I was tempted to say, I think we've already fixed this issue. It sounds kind of similar to something we fixed before, but I chose to keep persevering and keep researching. You see, what was happening was this, a particular order needed to be reordered in the Magento system. We'd rebuilt that out, so it wasn't using Magento specific reorder functionality. And I found out that when this original order was placed, dug out some extra details. Well, it turns out there was some critical information that was missing. Well, the question is, why is it missing? Well, it could have been just a bug in the past. It was July 12th that particular bug occurred. But researching, going deep, I think it took me 2 hours to finally get this whole phase done here. I ended up downloading a backup, seeing that these values were properly set in the backup back on July 13th. Remember the original record was set on July 12th. July 13th, I downloaded the backup for that, refreshed my database, evaluated the code, and I found out that we had a foreign key with a cascade delete that hadn't been removed. There's a problem with DB schema or the DB schema whitelist. Research what was happening in the code, take an inventory. That's what happened right there. So, quick side note, speaking of debugging, I would love to invite you to our Slack channel, swiftauto.com/Slack. We have over 1,000 people, wonderful, incredibly gifted community members in the Slack channel, where difficult problems are posted and people answer them. People give up of their time to share the answers. And I'm incredibly proud of this because it is solid, good answers that are given. There's a lot of websites out there that have Magento information. And unfortunately for many people, it's difficult to know whether this is a good solution or whether it's not a good solution. Well, there's great solutions on the Slack channel. And I'm super proud of the community that has been growing around this. One other thing to mention when we're talking about take an inventory, one of the most tempting but damaging things that can be done is to make irreversible changes as you are researching. You might say, well, but this row in the database sure seems to be causing the problem. I'm just going to go click delete, and yeah, that fixed the problem. Well, we just blew right through our 3 steps of TAD, and yes, we are on to a positive resolution with the merchant. And then the merchant comes back a couple weeks later and says, the problem is back again, you idiot. And you're like, what happened? This is a problem. It kind of happened again, and it's embarrassing, of course. But here's the key point. Don't make permanent changes. I say this because I've done this. In my book, The Art of E-commerce Debugging, I talk about some very specific examples that I've done this. And yeah, I look like an idiot because I just deleted evidence that I needed to really and permanently solve this problem. So don't make that same mistake that I've made so many times, like way too many times more times than I'd ever want to admit. But if you have to make these changes, make some destructive changes, take a backup. And I know that sounds cliche. It's so quick and easy to do a database dump. Now, don't put it in the root directory of your Magento website. Be careful with it. Ideally, it's encrypted or whatever you want to do, but take a backup first. And yes, we don't like to take a backup, but if you have a script to create a backup, you just run the script. It's so quick and easy to do that. So be a detective, be careful with the evidence. Don't trash evidence before you get it, before you have properly processed it. Number 2, we want to attempt a fix. Now we're like, yay. Now we get on to the fun stuff, right? We just busted our rears, 2 hours working hard on whatever this problem is that we're trying to research, figure out what's going on. But we now get to the fun stuff. We get to attempt a fix. But the thing is, taking an inventory is absolutely critical to setting up a profitable attempt a fix. If we have located the wrong problem, if we have looked at it from the incorrect angle, attempt to fix will not work. So that's why we need to be thorough in take an inventory, step number 1, but it's not like we want to be so thorough we spend 8 hours researching and never attempt to fix. So attempt to fix is the validation step, and it's also a bit of a trial. So we are validating our hypothesis through implementing some type of fix. Now, the fix could be very basic. It could be more involved. Either way, we need to take the time now to see how can we solve this problem with some code. Here is again some more pseudocode to demonstrate how this works. So our input is the hypothesis from our take an inventory step. Our output is either a solution or, if you're up on PHP 7, we have this question mark, which means a nullable type. In other words, it's a solution or null. You see, we might not have attempt to fix. In fact, attempt to fix, we might not have a fix that comes out of this, or we might not even need to be able, or we might not even be able to proceed to this step. Why is that? What if we did not have a conclusive hypothesis from taking inventory? All right, well, at that point, we have to skip attempt to fix. What if we try something in attempt to fix and we cannot get it to work? Well, we stop and we go to the next step. The most important thing here, my friends, try something, break something, just do something. And the key point is it doesn't have to be clean. It doesn't have to be pretty. One thing I will mention, though, is if you do a core hack, bang out something in the product model, make sure you put a comment on there, // Swift order added, done, right? Then you can go through and search your code base. Why is this acting funny? What if maybe if I just search for Swift order in the vendor Magento directory, because of course Magento is not shipping any code with the word Swift order in there. Oh, I added that. I added that when I was troubleshooting. I cannot believe it. But at least I documented that I made that change, and that saved me an hour or two. It was like, otherwise you have to reset the vendor directory. I've been there, done that. It's an absolute pain. It's not something fun to do at all. So again, be willing to stop if you run into problems. And here's the thing, do it again. This is a key part of this process. You're doing it again because you need to step back and take a break. Well, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Here is the pseudocode again. Take an inventory, attempt to fix, but if there's no solution, we are going to repeat. So what's involved in the repeat? Reset. And I really mean reset. Even if people are hounding you, this website is down. Joseph, you got to get, what is going on? Like, we got to get this site up. We're losing thousands of dollars. It's okay to get up, stretch your legs, walk around the room, do some deep breathing. And I'm serious, like deep breathing. It helps. It helps. It really does. It's okay to take a minute or two in that type of a scenario, refocus, think about this, and then get back to work. Ideally nothing. Document what you've tried. Oh, my notebook is on the ground. But listen, I've been dealing with some crazy bugs here, and I'm writing stuff down. I actually found I prefer writing in a notebook as opposed to in the ticket. I probably should be writing more notes as far as my troubleshooting steps in our Jira tickets. But take notes. Wherever you do it, take notes. It helps you prevent repeating the same thing over and over and over again, which is a complete waste of time and money. Take this step to communicate back to your project manager, account manager, your merchant, whatever your chain of command is in your company, and ask for help as necessary. So the benefits, talked about one already, the tunnel vision. I'm running out of time, of course, but we can review our approach. We're taking a measured, disciplined look into this problem as opposed to just fighting our way through it. And again, the problem that I see so often is it happens. We look at the same problem. We look at the same perspective over and over and over again. Do it again is so critical to pulling ourselves out of that tunnel vision, and the whole process ties together beautifully to ensure that we will have the best outcome that is possible in the fastest amount of time. We're not repeating effort. We're not focused on one particular solution or one particular hypothesis. We have an open mind. Do it again is critical to resetting. As I mentioned earlier, Xdebug is absolutely phenomenally critical to your efforts here in solving problems. And if you haven't already, go to swiftorder.com/mastering. I think there's a hyphen in there, mastering Xdebug, and to learn step by step how to install it. And almost every feature, every very important feature that it takes sort of to solve problems or to get Xdebug going and how to use it. So let's move on to Q&A. If anybody has questions, I am more than happy to answer it. And I do apologize. I feel like I stumbled over my words a little bit tonight. It's 11 o'clock. Actually, it's 11:30 here, my time. So I'm not one to normally stay up, but I am passionate about this stuff, and I am super excited to be able to share my findings with you all here about debugging.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Maxwell. That was a very comprehensive breakdown. I think our audience was not expecting that we even got a lot of affirmations, such as saying that we are the hero, and how this whole bug slaying process, you made it look like a really like an actual combat war zone that engineers can actually win on. So that was very refreshing. Yeah,
good.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
glad.
Yeah, I think one of the main points that you also mentioned was that it's not just about the bug slaying, but then there's also giving this assurance to the merchant side. Like we may not be able to replicate this right now, but we will ensure on getting it fixed. I think that was
That's
also Yeah, that was also one of the most important things, aside from finding the workarounds, doing it again, having our friend Ted be our support in this, but also assuring the merchants. That was very Thank you very much for pointing that out. I'm pretty sure our audience can really benefit from that. I guess for now, the Q&A section is still, we actually have one right here. Okay, so a question is, what do you think would be the best way to socialize the TAD framework to stakeholders from other divisions in the company, especially the client-facing ones? Wow, a very great question. Please do enlighten us, Joseph.
Yes, definitely. So the way I look at the TAD framework at the beginning is it's a personal decision. So it's not like it's going to affect other people in the company. But if they see me solving problems quicker with better documentation, more information written about this problem, people are going to start asking. Of course, feel free to talk about it in the organization. But my suggestion is, you're listening to this, so start using the TAD framework. And again, I talk about so much more of this in my book. Just start using the TAD framework. And as you get the hang of it, as you get into this and you start solving problems faster, and I mean, again, I can guarantee you will solve problems more effectively as well. You will be the ultimate TAD evangelist to the rest of your company, and it's going to spread like wildfire. I've seen people really excited about it. I've seen it make a massive difference. So I think was that the answer to, I think I understood your question correctly, and I hope that's the correct answer for it.
Okay, yeah, I hope to the end because it's already almost 11:30 as well. But not to worry, for Joseph and for everybody who is watching this right now, our online conference platform has lounge areas. We have DM features, and a lot of these features really support the interaction. So all these questions that are still unanswered, feel free to reach out to Joseph. Or I think you also mentioned about the Slack channel that you have, and I've also already inserted that in the chat section. So for the audience, please visit the links and everything and all the other links that Joseph was already mentioned as well. Once again, thank you, Joseph. We hope software engineers ever watching this can really get to learn a lot from the session and become master bug slayers in no time with the right tools as well. Once again, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so that should wrap up this third session of the day so far, but not to worry, we have a lot of sessions coming up. Like I mentioned in the very beginning, we have a total of 8, but then right now we will be taking a break and we will return for the next sessions at 1 p.m. Western Indonesia time. While you're waiting, please do make sure to visit our virtual booth and the exhibition page. This whole online conference platform has a lot of features that is going to make the experience even better for you. And we also have contests, games with rewards. So if you're up for a little competition today and just to stand a chance in winning those grand prizes and a very attractive one as well, please visit our contest page and have fun. Apart from that, we are also, our team is also very attentive to the leaderboard. As you can see in the homepage, we have a leaderboard section specifically. So make sure to gather as much points as possible by being active on the platform and just mingling around, setting a meeting and mingling with all the other fellow attendees, and visit our booth, talk to our team. So the steps are very simple. Just basically have fun, see how your leaderboard points are going to be like, and you can actually stand a chance in winning more attractive prizes as well. Okay, so I guess in the meantime, like I mentioned, we're going to be returning at 1 p.m. Western Indonesia time for the rest of the sessions. So be sure to stay tuned. You can probably grab some lunch or dinner or grab a quick cup of coffee, stretch a little bit perhaps, and move around. And I'll see you at 1 p.m. Western Indonesia time at the technical room of Meet Magento 2021 Indonesia. We'll be back. Ah!